We're back in the lab.
Back in the lab.
Back in the lab. I'm here with my friend, Dan Fulkerson.
Nice to be here. We've been talking about this for a long time.
Fulkerson. Injury attorney, very successful injury attorney. You guys are literally like everywhere, bro.
We try. Bulldogs everywhere.
Dude, your brand's like retarded.
Yeah.
I hate going places with you. If I'm going somewhere and I like the Bulldogs, you're like, dude, it's the guy.
Bro, the weirdest part is that like when people don't know who I am, but they're like, those are the dogs. And I'm like, there you go. The celebrity dogs.
That's so sick though. But yeah, it's super consistent. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to be the sleazy, slimy ambulance chaser. And there's so much of that it's like the only way that you can run it differently is just brand recognition. And so that's what we've done is just pure like brand community firm, and the Bulldogs are everywhere.
Yeah.
And it resonates with people. People are dog lovers. People love dogs, and it's real. Like Teddy's right here. Dogs come with me everywhere.
I'll give you some background. I talk to people about this all the time. So the reason I started this podcast in general, because my kids didn't listen to me.
Okay.
So I would talk to them about like life, but they're so young and certain things, it just doesn't grasp.
How old are your kids?
15 and about to be 17.
Okay.
So,
17, like ready to go out into the world.
Yeah, dude. But the thing is, I have great kids. Don't get me wrong. I have wonderful kids. I'm actually, thank you God, I have such wonderful kids.
Thank God for your wife.
I thank God for my wife too. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But what I found myself sometimes is like when I get on a certain kick and I want to share with them something about life, they would listen. Not that they wouldn't listen, but I started realizing, I'm like, you know what? Rather than it just coming from me, the people in my life that I've experienced and I've learned things from, like to actually hear it from them.
For sure.
You know, and it's whether it's about a mindset, following your passion, whatever. And that way it doesn't sound like it's like coming from dad.
Yeah.
And my daughter said it one day. She's like, Dad, you know, like a lot of people. I'm like, well, yeah, I've been in the business for 20 years,
for sure.
Tons of transactions. I come across just so many walks of life.
Yep.
And I try to share that with her. And after a while, they started to notice the isms, like where they came from. And then these common little themes.
Yep.
And I said, if I die ever someday, at least I got it on video. It's recorded.
But that's what I love about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I mean, it's literally like a video biography of your life. Like it's a video book almost of what you want to share and what you want to pass. And like you said, and someday, and this is the unfortunate reality, someday you will die and your kids will always be able to go back and watch it. And I would kill to have that of like my grandparents.
Right.
It's like my grandfather's life lessons are what shaped me, and they're all up here. But God, if I had like a way to be able to go and pull it and listen to them again. Right. Oh, I can't even tell you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
So before they were born, I was barbecuing by myself one day. I had this house, and me and my wife, we were maybe married about 3 years, maybe 4 years. And the house was huge. It was like, for just the two of us, it was like 3,600 square feet house, you know? And I had a barbecue in the backyard, you know, the pit and the whole nine being built and whatnot. And so I just remember being kind of like lit. And I'm like, I'm going to get a camcorder right now and record some stuff, knowledge for my kids right now, you know? And I kind of did. This is back like when it was like 8mm tapes, you know what I mean? So I recorded and I kind of set it aside. So then when I was cleaning my garage one day, I found the little box that had like the camcorder and the videos I had recorded for them. I'm like, oh my God, I never went back and did this. Yeah. So then, that's kind of how it started.
Well, I love it.
So
I love it. I think it's a good investment of time. And you and I have been talking for a while, and it's funny, like like you said, you've been out in the world for 20 years, so many transactions. We met over guns.
Yeah,
like that's how we met, was like gun training, which is great. But since then, like we've been going back and forth, and like I want to do a podcast with you because you and I see the world very similarly, and I think that we've been both a little bit outspoken over the last few years about the way that the world actually works. Hidden history is something we both are obsessed with, and I would love, like, I want to do a podcast that is all about that. Like that is, I think that people would love it. Like I just think that, and we got to figure out the format. We got to figure out the right way to do it so people can fact check it, because people are going to think we're crazy, and we're not. But I just think at this point in time, in the world, so many people are starting to wake up to the way things really work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's difficult to explain to people at sometimes because reality is a matter of perception.
For sure.
And perception can be carved in specific ways.
And manipulated.
And kept from people. So like where I started, I knew, and I'm trying to be very cautious on how I explain some of these things.
Yeah.
So I knew before how things were taking place in our world, like quite frankly, how we weaponize our information process in other countries, and through the weaponization of our communication, that people's perceptions are, you can get a place like Colombia overthrown in their government, or Bolivia, or cause a coup and do all these different things, right?
Which we do.
Which is what we do.
And we've admitted to it.
It's just fifth generation asymmetric warfare. But
I mean, how crazy it was it when Bolton came out and admitted that. He's like, well, yeah, that's what we do.
That's what we do.
That's how we operate.
That's how we've been doing. And it's how it's been done for since the 5th century.
For sure.
I mean, that's just basically what it is. Yep. But it's weird coming from the military side, knowing that this world exists and taking it for what it is, but you never ever think of it being imposed on the citizens of the United States. Domestically.
Yeah.
Right? Because you come home and it's like kumbaya.
You can be okay with it going on in Bolivia or Colombia, but you're like, they wouldn't do that to us.
Yeah. The leaflets, the psychological warfare that goes on with that. You never just think it would turn on you. But for me, I guess where it kind of started was when I started studying archaeology. Like when I really started getting into it, and it was just pre-COVID, I was always listening and learning about that kind of stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to dive in really deep. Holy crap. Like that's where it was like, oh my God, the information that have been crafted to us in such a specific way over such a long period of time was like astonishing.
And you're talking like the history books saying that humans have only been around for 10 to 12,000 years when really it's been significantly longer.
Significantly longer. But it's like anything else, who stands to benefit?
For sure.
Right? So and this was, I think, where you and I really start diving in deep. We both love to read.
Yeah.
And accepting uncomfortable truths when you're reading.
For sure.
And I think also it's taking opinion with a grain of salt.
For sure.
Because when you're reading something, you have to recognize that there is somewhat of an opinion being kind of like pushed your direction.
For sure.
And navigating through that, and then being agnostic of what you're reading.
For sure.
Right. And really that epiphany for me personally kicked off when I finished Ray Dalio's book, The Changing World Order. Because that's how he starts his premise off.
Yep.
Like if you guys haven't read a book, very heavy book economically speaking, right? But the way he talks about it in like a 10,000 foot view.
Yeah. And it's on Audible, so you can.
It's on Audible.
Yeah.
But just to kind of give a background, so Ray Dalio runs the largest hedge fund in the world.
Yep.
When they were in San Francisco and Xi Jinping came in and was having dinner with Biden, he was at the table having dinner with the guys.
Yep.
But you guys can follow him. Shout out to him. I'm gonna tag you on this. But to think about it, to be sitting down with world leaders, right? And to run the largest hedge fund in the world, but being able to look at the world in a different lens, which is agnostic. You're detached from the outcome, and you're really just looking at society over its cycles, right? And saying, okay, these are the different social cycles that these societies rise and fall. And he goes over that over 2,500 years. Right? And so you see these things and you're like, okay, it goes country to country, but in overall, there's still this long-term hierarchy that maintains a status. So they recognize that, think of a country like as a crop. This crop is going to come a little higher than this crop and that, but there's still like a farmer that's overseeing all of this as it takes place. That's what was kind of scary to me.
Yeah, it's very similar, and it's a great book. It's very similar to the book that we've talked about a lot in reference to Dalio's book, which is The Fourth Turning.
Yeah.
Because The Fourth Turning really takes like the last 5 centuries and looks at that and looks at how there are these cycles, just like there's real estate cycles, just like there's cycles in everything. There's cycles in the rise and fall of civilizations and in world dominance and in currencies. And there's symptoms that show when they're going to rise and when they're going to fall. And it's a little scary because you read these books and they're not written, Fourth Turning was written 20 some odd years ago, I believe.
93?
Yeah. So almost 30 years ago. And you read it and you're like, well, damn, like this is where we're at. And it's not on the rise. Like we're the symptoms are not good for where we're at. And so, and I think that that's another part that it plays against people is the human nature of, you want to look at the world with rose-tinted glasses. You want to believe that the government's there to protect you. You want to believe that everything's going to be good because it has been historically for our lifetimes and for our parents' lifetimes. But that is not the world. Like in the cycles are the cycles, and we are going to, and hopefully it's not in our lifetime. I'm one that believes that it will be, but at some point in time in the near future, we're going to go into a cycle of a bad time where things are rough and where things are hard and it's not the way that it has been. And I just don't think people are ready for it. And I don't think they want to see it.
It's funny that you say that. Okay. The reason I started also digging into a lot of that too. So the archaeology part for me was like just pure fun.
Yeah.
It's like, the basis of religions, right? And it's
like, were the pyramids built by the Egyptians? Were they already there before and they got claimed?
Yes,
yeah, 100%
I get
agree.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
But so that's one aspect of things, right? It's like, okay, this is kind of cool learning this information. And for myself personally, selfishly speaking, in learning about like economics and cycles and real estate cycles and what the consumer trends are like, things like that. But I'll tell you what, like that of understanding societal cycles with history over time, those two things then overlap.
For sure.
So for me, I'm looking at it like, okay, is now a good time for me to invest in real estate?
For sure.
And if I'm going to be investing in real estate, what type of properties will maximize the greatest yield of return for me without running into a risk?
For sure.
Right. And I've made tons of money on good markets. I've lost money in bad markets, made money in bad markets, and lost money in good markets. Right. So, when you're inside the fishbowl, you don't necessarily realize you're in the fishbowl.
For sure.
So by reading, you're actually taking yourself out of the fishbowl and then looking at it from a different lens.
I 1,000% agree.
Right.
In reading history. Because if you understand history, you have a much better understanding of what's going on right now.
Yes.
And history was, as learning for you, archaeology and things like that woke you up. It was history that woke me up. Like it was learning Operation Mockingbird and Operation Paperclip.
Yeah.
And like all of these
You were
things.
looking at the cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like the pieces start to like go together. And once the pieces go together and you see it, you can't unsee it. And that it's a gift and a curse.
It is. Because I know, were you really, really like excited when you first kind of like started putting it together? You're like, holy shit.
Oh yeah.
What's the feeling like? I saw this the other day and I was like, I'm telling Dan this. The Wheel of Fortune. You know how they flip it around and
didn't expect that was where we were going. But
a letter pops up.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden another letter pops up. And then you take a step back and you're like, wait, I can solve this. I see the pieces, how they fit together.
100%.
This is, on a cold, rosy night, sleeps on the beach or some randomness.
Yeah.
And you're like, yes, I figured it out. Because you know what the letters are coming based off of being basically operating at a higher frequency.
1,000%.
Right.
But history allows that. Right? Like if you don't have some of that historical context, it makes it so much harder to see. And I'll give a perfect example. And I'll say this, and I've said this before openly, and I think people have very polarized opinions on it. I don't know exactly what happened on 9/11, but I just know we're not getting the whole story, right? Like I've always said that. I know that it's not the whole story. Show me a video of a plane running into the Pentagon. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see that video. It's one of the most, videoed buildings in the world. I've never seen a video.
Secure,
one of the most secure. I've never seen a video of it.
You think the Iron Dome is solid?
That's what I mean.
This is like they created that.
That's what I mean. Like, show me a video. I'd love to see it. And Building 7, like all these things, they just don't add up. And I say that to people and they're like, so you think the government could be involved in that? Like, they would never do that. They would never kill their own citizens. And that's an easy thing to hold your hat on if you don't know things like Operation Northwoods, right? Mm-hmm. And once you understand that when JFK was the president and they wanted to go to war with Cuba, and the CIA came to him and his cabinet and said, hey, here's Operation Northwoods. We're going to run commercial airliners into buildings and blame the Cubans so we can have a reason to rile people up to get them to support a war against Cuba. And his entire cabinet unanimously voted yes, and JFK killed the project. Once you know that that is real history and that is declassified and you can look it up and it's real, then you go, they've talked about it before. Like, how can you say that they wouldn't do this when they were going to, but one man stood in the way, one man that they then later took out? Like,
it's scary.
Yeah.
Bro, when the further you keep drilling down on it, it gets really, really scary.
Yeah.
You know, our entrance into World War I. So what's really a slap in the face is when you watch it as an innuendo in a movie.
Yep.
And you're like, they know what we're talking about. They know what's up.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is like, just the fact that you're putting this in the movie is making you a soft, like, how do you want to say? It's softening you up.
For sure.
So, you know, I don't know. It's just like you oversee it.
For sure.
But the point I was going to try to make was that in those given situations, and my point to the movie, like to movies.
Yeah.
Swordfish.
Oh,
you ever watch Swordfish?
100%.
Swordfish. Watch Swordfish with John Travolta and what's his name, the guy that plays Wolverine.
Yep.
And Hugh Jackman.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Halle Berry's in it.
Halle Berry's in it.
Great scene with Halle Berry, by the way. In that
right?
movie. Yeah, that's really
that's the pool
one.
scene.
Yeah.
But that's a perfect example of it, though.
For sure.
How there's specific agencies that operate in ways to overthrow governments, to manipulate the perception to the masses, is essentially what they're doing.
100%.
So, and the reason I say, like, from World War I, we were never going to get into World War I, but at the time, to try to get more support from the United States, J.P. Morgan,
yep.
who invested into the UK, because somebody has to finance the war.
For sure.
Who've invested into France.
For sure.
The United States was saying, no, we can't afford it. We didn't have necessarily the Federal Reserve at the time.
For sure.
And they said, well, we'll bank you.
Yeah.
And Federal Reserve gets kind of created. And now we have funds raised so we can go into a war effort. And even then, this goes down some completely other side channel for conspiracy, didn't want to do it until they found out that he was having sexual relations in the White House. And they're like, oh yeah, hey, by the way, we got this dirt on you.
Oh yeah. And
yep, sure, we're going to go to war. No problem.
Yep.
And it's completely verifiable.
100%.
But that's an uncomfortable truth.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Then you watch a movie.
Which is funny, I have to stop you. Sexual blackmail before Epstein.
Oh,
like that shit's been going on for forever.
Well, first of all, what's the oldest profession?
Prostitution.
Yeah. What's the second oldest profession? Blackmail.
True story.
So now fast forward. I'm watching, what was I watching? Captain America.
Yeah.
And they're doing this whole scene, and then he has the video.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
They're the video through the White House.
It's like Captain America and Iron Soldier.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're talking about.
And I'm all, how can they throw this in our face, yet people don't comprehend why we even went to war?
You know the answer.
Yeah.
Because we're stupid.
And
people won't read. And people won't
read.
100%.
You know what my daughter read the other day? I had her read 2 books. The first one was Animal Farm.
Okay.
So we took a walk.
Yeah.
Right? Took him by we were in La Jolla Cove just to talk about Animal Farm.
Yep.
And she was like, Dad.
Do they make him read that in school anymore?
She did at her.
She did.
In her school. She's very intelligent. So she's been reading a lot as a kid. She's always read a lot. She actually read the Bible with me. Like, she's actually gone through it, and a few times. Anyhow, So we're talking about Animal Farm and the way societal conditioning happens and creates these social forms of governance, right? And she was like, man, that's kind of crazy. I'm like, right? So what do you think about communism? What do you think about socialism? What do you think about those elite powers that enforce their will like that? And she's like, I know, like the pigs. I'm like, exactly like the pigs.
Yep.
But it was weird though, as her being young and being able to comprehend it and seeing how this works in life with her friends,
For sure.
things like that. Randomly, maybe 2 days later, I get a phone call from a police officer raising money for kids to play sports.
Yeah.
And they call it the Pig Foundation. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, you know how they call cops pigs? And I'm like, why do you think they call cops pigs? I said, as a matter of fact, how about this, bro? I'll donate money to your organization if you can tell me why they're calling you a pig.
Yep.
Go ahead. And he's like, well, it's because we eat donuts. No.
Yeah.
Have you ever read Animal Farm?
Yeah.
The enforcers are the pigs.
Yeah.
What? I'm like, yeah.
People don't know history. Bro, and even like you and I talk about it all the time. That's why this has to be a podcast, because we could go on this forever. Words.
Oh my God.
Language. Like, people don't know the base of language, where it comes from, where words come from, why things are called what they're called. Like, once you start to break that down and have an understanding of it, everything makes so much more sense. It's hidden in plain sight, but no one wants to educate themselves enough to see it. And the people that do are the outliers, and that's why it's really easy to say, oh, you're crazy. No, I just took the time to not be ignorant. That's the answer.
That's the uncomfortable truth.
Yeah.
That is truly the uncomfortable truth. And is okay with it. That's another thing. And you know, it's scary.
Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss.
That is a saying for a reason.
My boy Brandon does social media for me. Yeah. This is one of the reasons why I was not wanting to share this with you, because you're too young.
For sure.
Because when you start getting enlightened in the world and the way the world really operates, then it's completely different.
For sure.
You see the matrix start happening.
For sure.
That's why when I don't even want to say COVID, because it's going to come up on my thing.
Yeah.
And the enforcement of what our government was starting to operate with, the way it was being presented, I took a step back and I was like, yo, I just want you, my friends, my immediate friends, I just want you guys to know, this is what's happening. This is what's going on.
For sure.
I went to my wife, swear to God, went to the room, because when I was a scout, we learned NBC training, nuclear, biological, chemical. So I wrote on the board the R0 schedule. And I'm like, okay, this is how, my wife was like, what the hell's going on? I was like, okay, babe, I'm going to show you something I don't show. This is like my old me. Yep. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. This is how much time we're going to have before XYZ. And this is like in January. Yeah. Then I have other friends that are in that space.
Yep.
So, hey, bro, this is man-made. Yep. Hey, dude, this is what we've seen in the gene. Hey, dude, here's what's going on. I'm like, okay, I'm getting the truth from people who actually touch the stuff.
For sure.
And where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Team guys, I can't even say this.
Yeah.
You know, people saying, hey, dude, this is what it is.
For sure.
This is what we think it is. If something happens, hit me up.
For sure.
Awesome. Everything was prepped.
Oh.
I had everything completely prepped.
Yeah.
Wash station in the house. Yeah. I mean, I was dialed.
Yeah.
And it was strange because by the time, I remember my birthday's in March, beginning of March. So in middle of February, we were flying, and the guy's a president of another mortgage company. We were flying to Florida for something. And I brought masks and I had shades on, and we were flying out of LAX. And I'm like, bro, I bought you a mask. It's an N95 mask. And he's like, what do you mean? And I mean, I'm talking about nobody was wearing a mask because nobody was onto this. I'm like, dude, here, I got to tell you something. Here's what's happening. Here's what's going on. I know it sounds crazy. You have to just trust me 1,000%. And I put that thing on, and I was just in line. I didn't even care. Okay. Nobody had it on. And he put his on and he wore it right when we went to the main section of the airlines. Dude, the fans were blowing so freaking hard. And he goes, this is kind of weird. I've never seen him do this. Well, all the doors open. I said, yeah, they're dispersing it. They know. They know. They're just trying to keep it down.
Yep.
Got on the plane. Florida, mind you. So now we're in Florida.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to be on the East Coast or West Coast and being fearful of something. Another thing being on the East Coast.
For sure.
Right? They're looking at us like, who are these guys coming on with masks on?
The new Texas. Yeah, for sure.
Right? So we go down and have sushi. I'm explaining to the guys, hey, this is what's going to happen. They're like, dude, no way. I'm like, I'm just telling you, this is a Black Swan event. This is what's going to be. I got so many like phone calls, bro. Dude, how did you know? How did you know? Because when you learn to start paying attention, then you can't be manipulated by it.
That is the entire point. The breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Once you can start to see the breadcrumbs, and that's why I think that us talking about these things is so important. It's not for you and I to hear ourselves talk. It's so people that don't see it can start to see it. Because once you see it, then you can start to pick up on it in real time, and you can start to be skeptical, and you can start to use critical thinking skills to go, ooh,
you just said it right there.
Maybe this is not something that I should just, I always say, don't just eat the shit they feed you. Like, the news is there to feed you a story. It doesn't mean that it's real. It's just what they want you to believe. When you have dancing syringes on the Tonight Show, you should be a little skeptical of why everyone's pushing the same thing so hard. It was the same thing with J6, with January 6th. As soon as that happened, immediately, because I know how to pick up on the breadcrumbs, I was like, something's going on here. Like, bro, this is not legit what they're telling us. Like, photos. I knew that day, I'm like, this is whack. This is bullshit. Like, and it took a little while for it to come out, but then you start to have like 3 police officers commit suicide within 3 weeks afterwards. And they're saying that they were killed, from January 6th. I'm like, no, they committed suicide. Like, why do 3? Yeah,
suicided.
They exactly. Yeah. Why did 3 cops? Like, cops deal with crazy things. BLM was way worse for cops than this was, right? And why would 3 cops with families go commit suicide? Like, that doesn't jive with me. Like, I'm like, what's going on? And then slowly things started to roll out, and now it's very obvious that this was like a inside FBI, CIA setup bear trap for stupid people, and people are slowly starting to see it. But when I would say that back then, my friends would be like, "You're crazy! Like, this is bull," and I'm like, okay." That's why it's you just don't see the breadcrumbs,
bro. Like, I share stuff with you specifically. Yeah. I told you that. I'm like, dude, I'm only sharing this with you because you get it. But it's difficult to have ever conversations like that because, for the majority of people, they live inside that bubble. They live inside the goldfish. They're in there getting fed, and they're just complacent.
For sure.
And when you really think about society, this is actual statistics. So in society, if you have 100% of people, 20% of them are full on cult mentality.
For sure.
Meaning whatever narrative is being fed to them specifically, they are 100% all in.
100%.
60%, for the most part, are NPCs.
Yep.
They're like, you know what? It is what it is. It was on the news. Hey, did you hear about it? Completely disconnected from it.
Yeah.
Almost like there's a term for it. It's willful ignorance, essentially what it is.
Yeah.
And those, unfortunately, are the loved ones that we have that will automatically take an experimental shot, right, without ever looking into what active ingredients are actually in there, how it was created, why it was created, why are they giving it to me as this way,
bro. And these are the people that will argue with you and tell you, no, it's tested for long-term side effects. How? Explain that to me logically. How? And it's okay.
Yeah, and people don't want to read.
No.
They just don't want to read.
Yeah.
I read the study from Japan when they did the autopsies in the first like 60 days of it, the rolling out. They immediately started to see, because that's what their version of CDC in Japan does, is they do full on autopsies. Yeah. It's like a 34-page report. Yeah, some of the words are a little big, but I got Google. I can cross-reference a word. And when you go through the whole thing and you're like, holy, wait, time out. This is engineered.
Yeah.
Because it's not coincidental.
Yeah.
And as it continues to roll out, even the prescription for it, right? The remdesivir.
Yeah.
Google it. What was it created for? It was created for Ebola.
Yeah.
Oh, did you know that the side effects from this also mimics what you get when you have pneumonia?
Yeah.
Your lungs fill with fluid, your kidneys shut down.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, let's do some I don't know, respiratory pressure system that we treat high altitude patients for.
Yep.
And yeah, let's suffocate them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, that's not cool.
No.
And I've had these conversations with doctors. My neighbors are doctors.
For sure.
And they looked at me like I was a nut. I'm like, well, just kind of curious, right? But what it reminded me of, and this is how scary this kind of is sometimes, and as business owners, why it's important for us is recognizing dogma.
For sure.
And I think, you know, as we kind of talk about these things that sound somewhat conspiratorial, but dogma and understanding what dogma is and why it exists, people don't get out of their comfort zone, even when they're not just in their own life, in their own business, in their own family. They don't stop and question.
For sure.
Right? Real estate's a really good example of that. In real estate, the old school way of doing business was like, I mean, back in the day, people had newspaper ads and magazine ads.
For sure.
And that's where they stuck. And then when the new world rolled out with digital marketing and digital media, it was very difficult for people to make that kind of transition.
Yep.
Because it was just like, well, I've always been doing it this way, and this is the way things have always been. And that's the fish bubble.
For sure.
But when you take your ego out of it, and then you take a step back and say, you know what? This is uncomfortable that I don't know this because I'm a new student again. Let me just understand this a bit. Let me just start figuring this out a little bit. Holy shit. Oh my God. I can get so much more if I'm posting on Facebook and I'm running ads and blah, blah, blah. And so I say this, my old boss, I think I told you this, my old boss was Jocko. So here in San Diego. So for like 6 years. But one of the things that I learned from him, I was training some new guys and he goes, the tactics of war never change.
Yep.
The application of the tactics is what changes.
For sure.
And I was like, bro, that's exactly right.
That's why the art of war can survive the way that it
the
has.
Millennia for how it
it's
does.
The tactics, but the application will always change based on society.
Right.
100%.
And so when you read The Art of War, one of the things that a principle that people don't understand is what 5th generation warfare is. 5th century warfare. How can you change the minds of the people in such a way, craft the minds of the people, number one, to keep them oblivious that they're even in a war.
100%.
And before even winning, make them feel comfortable that they've already lost.
Yep.
That they're an individual. And then now you fast forward to today when social media has its censorship.
Yep.
I always say the truth is in the comments.
Yep.
But you'll see 90 comments. Boom, 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 boom. One guy chiming out and then like another person just sitting there blasting them. Bro, are you under a rock? Have you not seen? Da, 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 da. And I feel now we're kind of going through this new great awakening.
For sure.
Right? Like people are starting to like, wait. You lied to me enough.
Yeah.
But in the same 100% of those people of 20, 80, and 20, what happens, and this is, I forget what psychological study this was, a narrative gets created where almost 90, 95% believe in this entire dogma.
Yeah.
And there's the 5% outliers over here. But once it gets really compressed at a certain point, even if it gets down to 1%, one person, and I hate to say it, a guy like Trump would say, hey guys, that thing you're watching on the TV is called programming for a reason.
Yeah.
It is programming you and it's full of lies. And that you talk about Mockingbird.
Yeah.
When you start seeing them saying the same tagline, the same agenda, the same drive, it's all in unison. It's all in lockstep.
Yep.
Wait. Am I in the Truman Show right now?
And the fact that most of these media companies are all owned by the same general entities. And that's what I think people get lost on people as well. Because they're like, how could this be so coordinated? It's, it's corporate. It's a corporate structure where even though you have different corporations, they're all owned by the same corporation. So you have the same control structure, and all of these entities have the same shareholders and same investors that have the same agenda. And so they're able to roll it out, and people are none the wiser. But Operation Mockingbird, which you're talking about and referencing, which is one of my things that woke me up, was the CIA basically was planting stories and agents throughout all mainstream media to manipulate the narrative. And it came out and it was testified to in open Congress, and they admitted it. And at the time they admitted that they had thousands of agents that were basically feeding fake stories throughout the country. Now, I always ask people, I'm like, so if this happened and they admit to doing it, and they only admit to thousands, they probably had more, do you think that this stopped? It's the most powerful tool that they have of societal manipulation is the media. So you have to be very careful when you're reading the Washington Post or reading the New York Times, you're watching Fox News, you're watching MSNBC, because there is an agenda at play, and they've shown that they will use mass media to try to manipulate the way society is moving.
Yeah.
And so you should always be skeptical.
Well, you go back to the words. Yeah. Right. So I tell people, I have basic, like maybe this is like our moment we can kind of like push to the podcast that you and I are going to do, is that the definition of government. If you look at it, Latin, govern, what is to govern? Govern is to control, to maintain. Mente is the mind. So really what government is the control of the mind.
Yep.
And if you control the minds of the people, then they don't know that they're in mental shackles.
Yep.
They don't know that they're being corralled.
For sure.
Right? But as you have parties that are powerful, that stand to benefit, typically financially, not just power, but the influence, that once you understand that, then you start seeing how they can pay a football player $20 million to get a jab, when it's one of the most unpopular things to get.
For sure.
What would be so freaking ironic right now, bro, is that the guy is playing in the Super Bowl and has a heart attack on the field. How crazy would that be?
Oh, I know.
That would be crazy. People would be like, yo.
Yeah.
He got paid more in that advertisement than he got paid for the entire year of playing football.
It's insane.
You got to ask yourself why.
100%.
It's not because of his talent. It's because of his influence.
And if something is that necessary and needed for society and safety, you shouldn't have to push it that hard.
Yeah. You should be begging for it, like fresh, cleaning water.
For sure.
Right?
For sure. But now we know how much was hidden about that and how much of the side effects were, and it continues to be. And it's now right there in, published documentation and peer-reviewed studies that show they knew natural immunity was stronger and they hid it. They knew that there were these side effects and they hid it. They knew that it wasn't going to stop transmission and they hid it. How many times do these corporate entities get to lie to you and you still trust
nobody goes to jail
feeding you? And Pfizer has the biggest criminal, fine for any of these pharma companies. I can't remember what it was. It was a few $billion for fraud. Like, that's who you're trusting? Like, that's who you're going to get behind and believe? It's crazy.
It's what's even worse, though, is that I think there's two halves to this coin, right? Because one half is ignorance is bliss.
For sure.
Because when you start taking the time to actually read what is either in your food, in your how your food even got there to begin with, what's actually in the ingredients in fast foods, right?
Yeah.
We see
how chicken nuggets at McDonald's have 20 different components to it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to do this so I won't get like banned on YouTube. I'm like, okay, we see the softening of men over time, and especially in the last 20 years for sure.
Yep.
Right, and all these replacement foods that we've been given.
Yep.
Soy milk, right? Cereal with the sugar that's in it. And these kids are having ADHD galore because of the amount of sugar starting the day. It's one of the worst things you can do in the morning, right? And so we're feeding this poison to a generation, and then as they get older and older and older, there's no doubt in my mind why they are oblivious to this, because they've been sedated and demasculinized
For sure.
for almost a full generation. It's that slow.
Bro, fluoride in our water. Like, how many studies do you have to see that fluoride is a toxic chemical that is bad for your brain, slows down your reasoning?
It actually lowers IQ.
100%. Makes you easier to manipulate. They've used it in wars before
Insane
on masses.
asylums.
Yes.
It was a daily prescription in insane asylums.
And yet people are still like, oh yeah, the government puts fluoride in water because it helps your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we doing?
Same with morning cereal. That was done also to...
For sure.
You saw the level of docile that they created them.
For sure.
Yeah.
It makes us easier to control. That's what it is.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, though, that we're not going to be culled like cattle at some point. Because now, and this is like my scary thought, now as we have AI rolling out, which we could talk about that another time, but now that we have AI rolling out, making a lot of jobs obsolete, and we have a lot more automations happening, even down now to the fast food shop, right? Because they don't want to pay $20 an hour for a burger.
Yeah.
So what do? Automate it, right? That puts an entire generation of people out there that are not going to be useless.
Millions and millions and millions of people. Yep.
Within the next 10 years.
For sure.
And I'm even being conservative on saying 10 years. In the next 10 years, when cars become 100% automated, so you no longer have to even buy a car. You just Uber request it, shows up to your house, no driver, jump in.
Yep.
Now you have to even buy a car. You're going to rent and be happy.
Yep.
What's going to happen with the entire profession of delivery services?
For sure.
That's a lot.
For sure.
All transportation completely wiped.
Yep.
But don't get me wrong. That's why I say 10 years, because we do have infrastructure. And this is where the people would chime in. Oh, they can't do that because there's not enough power grid.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you don't think they'll fix that?
Yeah.
Look at your streets in some of these cities now where they've taken out the second lane and they purposefully put bikes there.
For sure.
And what if they start disincentivizing you from even owning a car because they make it prohibitively expensive?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And it's not an overnight thing. It's this drip in a bucket.
Yep.
Drip in a bucket.
Yep.
So you don't notice the level going up.
And then you wake up one day and here we are.
Yep.
Yep. I agree.
They call it corralling.
Yeah.
They in the wild, they would put feed and they would put a fence wall up.
Yeah.
And the wild pigs would like see the fence. Oh, they wouldn't come around till they saw, oh, well, this doesn't really hurt.
Yeah.
So they'd walk around the fence, eat the feed, and then they put another wall up in the fence. This doesn't really hurt. And then the pigs come back and then they put another wall in it and they find their way into the corral.
Yep.
Eat the food. Oh, there's free food. Free food.
Yep.
Start putting up a little bit more. Leave a gate open.
Yep.
They start walking in the gate willingly.
Yep.
And then eventually, close the gate. And they'll look back and they'll see the gate closed. But they're like, I'm getting fed.
Yep.
I got water. I'm good.
You know, the even crazier part is, to add on to that, is the study that they did with fleas, where they put a bunch of fleas in a glass jar.
Oh, yeah.
And fleas would be able to jump like, a glass jar, let's say it's 8 inches high.
Like your water height.
Yeah, let's say it's my water height.
Yeah.
Fleas would be able to jump, 3 feet. And so fleas were jumping out of that without a lid on it. And so they would put a lid on it, and over the generations of these fleas, they would realize that they would hit the top of the, glass jar, the lid. And so that's where they could jump to. So after like 2 generations of breeding these fleas, they pulled the lid of this glass jar off, and the fleas would only jump to where the lid height was.
Yep.
So there's not even a lid anymore. All these guys could free themselves and jump out, but they are so programmed and trained that is the maximum height that they're able to jump. They don't even need the lid.
They've done
anymore.
that with monkeys.
Exactly. So that's kind of the societal manipulation, where we're all stuck in this frame of mind and thought process because there's so much manipulation. And that's why I don't blame people for being blind to it. I just ask, keep an open mind and look at things a different way, because maybe if you do, something will crack in you the way that it cracked in me, and it'll change your life for forever. And I do think that there will be a time in our life where if you do not have that sort of capability and that sort of logical, critical thinking skill set, you could be the one that gets taken out.
Yeah.
And that's what worries me, is it's usually the people that just go along with it that get cold first.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. 100% true. See, but this is the beautiful thing though. This kind of conversation of elevated thinking is really about, it's how applicable it is also into business.
For sure.
And the reason I say this, and I talk about the story of the monkey. So if you guys don't know the story of the monkey, so this is the deal. So scientists got 5 monkeys, put them in a room, put a ladder in the room, put some bananas on the top of the ladder. As the monkey tried to climb the ladder, they would hit cold water on the other monkeys, preventing them from trying to climb the ladder. So they'd grab the other monkey and pull him back down until eventually none of the monkeys wanted to climb the ladder. Slowly, they would replace one monkey at a time. One monkey would come out, immediately try to climb the ladder. The other monkeys would grab him, beat the shit out of him. The monkey wouldn't do it until eventually none of the monkeys were the original monkeys that got the cold water. And so they would starve there, even though right up the ladder, there's bananas.
Yeah.
Now, what they found in that same study as it continues is that out of the 5, 1 always said, bullshit, I'm climbing the ladder. That's the 20%. Because at some point you have to question the dogma. In my world, especially for like underwriting, when I understood that premise, I would have underwriters. When I'm doing a transaction, they would say, I've been underwriting for 20 years. And I'm like, I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go read that. So then you go to the book and you start going through the guidelines, and then you read it and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
They changed that like 7 years ago.
For sure.
Let me see. Dude, what?
Yeah.
So it's important that when people come to you from a position of authority because of experience and time frame, you take it with a grain of salt.
For sure.
But you trust but verify.
For sure.
Right? And our business is no different. If you have individuals that say this is the way we've done it for the last 50 years, Polaroid, right? Kodak, Blockbuster. If you keep thinking that way, this is the way we've always done it, and you don't see societal changes and how you need to shift and move your business, then you'll just get left behind. And not only left behind societally, but even in your business, if you don't take critical thinking skills, take your ego out, read a book or two, and be willing to learn and change.
Well, and
get off my soapbox right now.
Well, no, but it's so true. And like, I built my business, and maybe I was ignorant at the time and I just got lucky doing it. But I hated the way that personal injury attorneys worked. I hated the way that the legal field was viewed. I hated that it's been the same for 60 years. And so when we started Bada Fulkerson, thank God I have an understanding law partner that trusts me, but I was like, we're going to break all this shit. We're going to break everything. We're going to rebuild it different, and we're going to do it different than how everyone else does it, from the marketing to how we compensate our attorneys to how just every system and process is different than any other law firm that you'll go to. And I think it's why we've been so successful, is because people wanted change, right? And if I would have just walked in lockstep with everyone else, I'm going to get caught up in the crowd. No one's going to, there's no difference. And there we are. Instead, we become one of the busiest firms, in San Diego for sure, and in Southern California in a 7-8 year period, where most times it takes people 20, just because we were like, nope, not doing it that way. We're going to go a different direction. And I think that there's a power to that, and people like that. People are uncomfortable with change, but when you're one of those people that, has whatever inside of you that will allow you to do it, people get behind it. It's momentum.
Yeah. And and I love the fact that you said that, because it's ironic to me now that when I see, and I'm not going to call them anything mean, the individuals that don't see it,
for sure,
right? When you start recognizing there's another world, and there's like this matrix that kind of exists because you detached from it.
Yep.
the first thing I know for me, I'm like super excited.
Yep.
Oh my God, let me tell you all this stuff I learned, and da 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 da, and then this, and then this, and then for somebody else that hasn't had the desire to elevate their thinking,
Yep.
not only can be overwhelming, it's almost like not even a turnoff. It's more like, oh, this guy sounds crazy.
For sure.
Right? I had a friend that did that about 10 years ago.
Yep.
He was trying to tell me about the Social Security number.
Yep.
You know, dude, the Fed, and this is what the Fed did. And I wasn't into any of that kind of thing. And I'm like, bro, what happened to Corey? This guy went off the deep end. And I knew his wife. They got a divorce, and she's still one, a friend of mine, friends with both of them. And then, ironically, because they're still friends, you know. So she goes, man, Corey was so right. Yeah. And here we were thinking this guy was a nut.
For sure.
And yet we're in the system, man. This is what's going on. And his ex-wife's now telling me this. I'm like, and then there's more. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if I want to share you more because it's kind of a hard pill to swallow. But there's a lot more.
Do you know how many people I had come to me in 2020 when I like started openly talking about this on like my Instagram that were like, you're crazy. And then those same people would come back around a year or two later and be like, thank you so much. Like, thank you so much. I see it now. I thought you were nuts, but now I get it and I see it. And I really appreciate you continuing to speak about these things because more people need to wake up. That's the pattern. Mm-hmm. You're crazy. Maybe I should look into this a little bit. Maybe I should spend some time on this a little bit. Maybe I should read a book. Oh shit, you're not that crazy. I see it now. That's the pattern. You just have to get people through that. Eventually,
I think, people, you got to read this book, 1984. That's kind of like, maybe we start with that.
Yep.
Maybe we start with something like that. And that's what I do. I recommend to my friends now. I'm like, hey, bro, I can talk to you about the game.
Yep.
I don't give a shit about the game. Those players don't contribute to my income.
Yep.
So I don't want to memorize their scores. I can care less.
Yeah, for sure.
But dude, you got to read a book.
Yep.
1984. And they come back and they're like, did this with my pastor. Halfway through, he's like, dude, I couldn't read this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, this is real life. This is society. Yep. I'm like,
Bro, books are the breadcrumbs. Books have been the breadcrumbs for you. They've been the breadcrumbs for me. And I know you're the same way. I literally have a library at my office of books, and I'll have like 1984. I'll have 3 copies of it at any given time, right?
Because you're mean.
Yeah, well, because it's like I don't know who's showing up, but like I'm gonna drop you a breadcrumb.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna drop you a breadcrumb. Creature of Jekyll Island. I have like 4 copies of that thing in my office.
Yeah.
People are like, why do you have 4 copies of the same books? Because someone's going to walk into my office that needs that. And that's going to be their point of the veil getting pulled and going, oh, that's how the Fed got started.
Yeah.
Like people need that because it's different. It's different.
And people don't even know what's coming next.
No idea.
Oh my God.
No idea.
The reason I'm looking at the multi-unit builds and development specifically is because of that. Yeah. So when I read the BlackRock, their real estate prospectus and the reasoning why and what they're anticipating on how it's supposed to happen, I'm like, oh my God, I got to hurry up and do this.
For sure.
I got to hurry up and do this now.
Units.
Well, units. And we're going to be Valenzuela pretty quick.
Because you will own nothing and you will like it.
You will. So you better be the landlord.
For sure.
If they're going to push it so hard that you're going to be a renter and be happy.
For sure.
Cool. I'm going to do the exact opposite of that.
For sure.
I'm going to try and find how many buildings I can build as quickly as possible.
For sure.
Right? Done.
For sure.
And it's okay.
Well,
Nothing
and you
wrong
watch Vanguard and BlackRock for the first time really in history going and buying residential real estate at an alarming,
just
rapid level.
One bought 40,000 homes last year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they are moving and they're paying over market price and they're just swooping stuff. Why? Why are they going to play landlord? Because you will own nothing and you will like it. And so I agree with you in the same thing. What I worry about.
Well, I'll pause you there. Here's one of the things, and this is something for people to think about. Your price of goods isn't going up. Your currency was actually devaluing. And the more it devalues, the more you had to give in order to get that specific item.
For sure.
So, like a case in point, bottled water.
Yep.
if I was going to buy that in Zimbabwe currency, because they printed so much of it, right? It's such an abundant currency that I'm spending $1 million Zimbabwe dollars. Now I know that sounds like an extreme, but in Venezuela, they had like 200% increases in just inflation.
Well, they were using money as like to start fires.
Right.
That's how useless it was.
Because the government just thought we can print ourselves into oblivion. And even to us today, we're seeing hundreds of billions of dollars getting exported.
For sure.
Exported. They're giving money away to people right now that are here living illegally to put them up in the Ritz-Carlton and feed them and give them food and give them subsidies. If we were able to do that 2 years ago, we wouldn't have a single homeless person.
But do you realize that it's some crazy fact, like the amount of money that we've given to Ukraine, like the $250 billion we've given them, you could end homelessness like 25 times over in the United States of America.
Yep.
Like those kind of things are just mind blowing. And I will be the first to say it, that we, in our lifetime, the dollar will not be the world reserve currency. And once that happens and the money print turns off, everything changes. And I say this to people and I tell them, I warn them about BRICS and I warn them about, we lost our way when we went away from the gold standard, and they're so ignorantly blissful. They're like, that'll never happen. And I'm like, it's happening. It's not going to happen. It is. We are in it right now.
Yeah. It's like that. I'm talking about the bucket with the dripping water.
Yep.
We're at the point now we're like about 2 inches away from the top.
Yep.
And at some point it's going to be like slightly over the edge.
Yep.
Right now, case in point, our interest payment to our GDP debt, just our debt, is what, 110, 115%?
Yep.
So that means we're not even able to service our debt right now.
Nope. We're just paying interest on it.
Not even.
Yep.
We're stacking on the debt. We're actually in a neg-am loan right now.
Yeah. So what I worry about is like what we're talking about, units, right? And this might be a little crazy, and you can tell me if I am, but I worry like in order for you will own nothing and you will like it, they're going to have to do some crazy shit to be able to pull private property rights away from citizens, right? They're not going to let us play landlord to 30 units, right? Like they're going to have to do something. It's like, so because of that debt as a country, do they sell that? Do they sell that debt and they sell all of our private property rights with it? And then, you know what I mean? There's going to be something that happens. They're not just going to let you and I go, okay, cool.
Well,
you own nothing.
Here's a test case for you. In Hollywood, in Beverly Hills right now, they're trying to pass a law where you can no longer do any sort of remodeling or refurbishing of property.
I saw that. You can't build a pool grotto. I saw this.
You can't build a pool grotto.
Yeah,
and it's always like a little test case like that.
Yeah.
So it's a test case first, right? Okay. So now if the wealthy can't stop this from happening, because of the way the dynamics of the social norms are happening, then it just starts to spread. Case in point, rent. Yeah. So having rent saying, okay, we're going to do a mandate that rents can only go up X amount per year, period.
And you can't evict people.
And if you do evict them, you got to pay 2 months of their rents plus moving costs and blah, blah, blah. Now it becomes the slowly choking out the small property owner.
Or San Francisco, if you have an extra room, you need to take in a homeless family.
Yeah, if it's vacant, we're going to charge you a penalty.
Yeah.
At San Francisco.
Yeah.
Right? Airbnb illegal in New York, and then people are trying to bootleg it. And then eventually, as the government continues to grow, you give them a little bit of power, and they start confiscating these properties.
Yep.
Right? We just confiscate the whole hotel, and we're going to fill it with migrants.
Yep.
There you go. Done.
Yeah. And takings clause. No worries. We'll pay you in a currency that has no value, but we paid you. So we've constitutionally done it the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. We gave you fair market, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, wait. This is generational for me.
Exactly.
This property was meant for my great grandkids. What are you talking about? Nope. Sorry about that.
Yep.
You figure it out.
Yep.
But that slow drip of social change, people, they can't see it. Maybe because in a book, you're taking in 20, 30 hours. I mean, I like to listen to audio. So I'll do it 1.5 times speed.
Me too.
It keeps my mind attentive, and I blow through a 30-hour book in, 18 hours, give or take, right? So but it's given to you in such a element of a picture that it's painting. You're like, oh shit, I never saw the signs.
Yep.
I didn't see this, and then this what happens, and this what happens, and that's what happens, and this is how it happens. Oh, this isn't the first time I've done it. Oh, and Weimar Republic, this is what happened there. Oh, and by the way, it happened over here, and then in the UK, it happened there. That's why I think like Ray Dalio's book and like the Fourth Turning,
For sure.
It's just breaking down what happens.
For sure.
You know, if you guys don't know, like the 4 quadrants is like, you know, hard times breed hard men.
Yep.
Hard men breed good times. Good times breed weak men. Well, guess where we are in that curve right now? Yep. And the reason I say we have such good times right now is because when we're worrying about the dumbest things,
yep.
I'm talking about the dumbest,
yep.
and we're living in delusion land,
yep.
right?
My post didn't get enough likes.
My hair's purple,
yeah,
right? Yep. And they're painting trees in the forest, and they're naming the mice that are around their house names. Yep. That's the epitome of like the really good life. However, those are the first to die.
For sure.
And I hate to say this. So in another experiment with the mice, they created this utopia. And then the mice started to break up into their groups. And then this one group was the beautiful mice. The beautiful ones, they were over there off to the side. Eventually, when they stopped putting the food in there, the beautiful mice were the first ones to eat their children. They're like, I'm not giving this up.
Yeah.
They're the first ones to start turning.
Yep.
Because they had it so good, they got snatched it away. Yep. They had nothing else to offer. Sure. In the meantime, the worker mice just went back to business, but those were the first to just cull themselves.
For sure.
You know, and that has been so replicated throughout society. In the Dutch, they did it.
Yep.
In France, they've had revolutions. Let them eat cake.
Yep.
And when the elite, and that's where I think we're at today, when the elite becomes so oblivious
yep.
that they keep lying so much to the people on the street, at a certain point, they start believing the lie themselves.
For sure. For sure. Here's my question for you. So we're talking very macro. On a micro level, you and I talk a lot about a flip the table moment, right?
Yeah.
Like, and no one wants that. But what I mean by that is where they're like, oh, they realize people are waking up, people see the bullshit, and they just go, we're not going to play anymore. And they flip the table over, right? We'll start over again.
Yeah.
This year it feels intuitionally, and again, I could be wrong, just a feeling, like it's building up to that, right? Like we got this big election. You have more elections this year worldwide than you've had, historically in a very, very long time. People are starting to wake up. They obviously don't want, the Republican candidate that right now is a Republican candidate. They don't want anything to do with him being back in power.
He breaks the status quo. So it's like, it feels like you are somewhat building to a flip the table moment. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't go the way that they want to, if they can't play the game and manipulate the game the way they want to. What do you see that as? Like what I've been thinking about this really hard and deep. Yeah. So I read the letters from Henry Pike.
Okay.
So Henry Pike was
I was gonna say, you gotta explain
33 degree Mason, 1890. He wrote these letters. You take them for yourself, read them. I think the system has trigger mechanisms in it.
Yep.
And those trigger mechanisms are wars.
Yep.
And that's what ends up happening.
Yep.
So almost in itself, like if you think of the fishbowl, at a certain point, if you don't change the water and the algae starts taking over, right? The system corrects itself. So if you just have fish in the water and they're doing their thing and the algae starts to grow, at a certain point, it kills the fish, which then the algae will eventually die back down.
For sure.
In our society, that's, to me, what will probably end up happening is that we're not seeing this slow march to a war, but the way that the alignment is happening with the currencies and the agreements, or the currencies, we're like, you know what, why are we taking the dollar on?
Yeah.
Let's dump this.
Yeah. Why are we dealing with
Why
sanctions?
are we dealing with sanctions?
Yeah.
Screw these guys. Let's create our own system.
Yep.
Aren't you guys tired of it?
Yep.
And then they're pointing at us right now and our media. Look, they're even lying to their own citizens all the time. Look at them. And they're weak. Look at these soy people. Look what they're doing. Look how they're operating. And that 5th generation warfare kicks into my mind and says, damn, they already beat us. We have the lowest recruiting numbers right now on record for the military. It's like 25%. I want to say something like that of goal, which is crazy. And then the standards when you get there. I talked to my guys and the team guys that are training. They're like, dude, this is not like the same anymore. So within the 20-year, 9/11 happened. You had guys that were patriotic, jumped in, boom, I'm all about it.
Yep.
Fast forward 20 years, it's not the same.
No. And what's sad and scary is you talk to, like, you have a lot of friends that were former team guys. I have a lot of friends who were former team guys, and these guys have been around and seen some stuff. And you ask them now, and they're like, we already lost.
Exactly my point.
This is already over. Like when it happens next, it's not even going to be a fight, and that's what's scary.
What do they say? 9 meals away from anarchy.
Yeah.
So all they got to do is just turn the light switch off.
Well, and so that is what I was getting at, because that's my prediction.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have some sort of power grid issue, some sort of cyber attack, something like that, where they're gonna switch the power off, and
they just fart.
I don't know, farted or burped. It's Teddy.
I love it.
It's going to be something like that, because I truly do think that with our society and the friction level that we already have, you kill the power for 4 or 5 days, you're going to have anarchy in the streets.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have us ripping ourselves apart.
Yeah.
And that's the best case scenario for them.
That's why I was talking to one of my business partners this morning, and I told him to, he was frazzled. And I've been working on this myself, so I'm not perfect at it. But I said, hey, bro, pause for just a second. Get a piece of paper. I want you to break up 4 quadrants. Quadrant number 1 is your business right now.
Yep.
What's the top priority in your business you need to bang out? Just write those things down.
Yep.
I want not to do them, just write them out. What's your first? I got to do this. And what's your second? I got to do this. Cool. Okay. Over here on the other side.
Yep.
Personal life,
Yep.
family life. What's like the next most important thing for your family? What do you need to knock out right now?
Yep.
Like whatever it is, take the car in to get fixed, whatever it is, just jot those things down. Let's just break it up. On the bottom, for you, what do you need to do right now? What do you need to do? Schedule the appointment for the doctor. Like I had mine, I was looking at my list. I'm like, oh, I gotta get a checkup. I gotta get these things done. Right. And then on the very bottom, it's really like, okay, what are you going to do to help build a better future for your family?
Yep.
So that was another action step. I'm like, okay, bro, remember our definition of financial freedom.
Yep.
Your money grows faster than you spend it.
Yep.
In order for us to build our units out, we need to have our plans done.
Yep.
That's a priority, yeah? Because this other stuff, you want to get out of it, yeah?
Sure.
Okay. But you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit over here on your game plan to get out of this other stuff.
For sure.
And he was like, bro, hell yeah. Okay, I got it. So those kind of like just breaking up certain quadrants, right? To me, thinking about this flip the table moment is like, okay, does my family have an action plan should something go bad?
For sure.
Good. My daughter was freaked out today. She forgot her phone at home.
Yep.
I'm like, okay. Fair aid bags for my phone. Maybe I'll never use it. Maybe I will. Right?
Tell people what they are. Everyone
yeah,
hears that
it's a bag like if an EMP ever hits, electromagnetic devices will all go away. That's why I got the Mustang.
You have a satellite phone?
Dude, I was going to buy one, but you know what?
I got one for me and my law partner.
I thought about it, and I'm like, nope, because you know what? If that pops, comms are dead.
Matter. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Comms are dead.
Communicating with?
Yeah. But you know what I do have? Shortwave radio.
So do I.
Yeah.
Yeah. Smart.
Yeah. In a ferried box.
Yeah. Smart.
I order new battery sets.
Oh, yeah. Smart.
You know what I mean? So that's different, right?
Food, water, guns.
Yeah. But you know, being proficient with them.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what the most eeriest thing was though. When I was my nephew. So I told my wife, I was like, hey, I need to go get my nephew, is it Carlitos? He's going to University of Irvine, UC Irvine.
Yep.
I need to go get him now. And she's like, why? I go, because by Friday they're going to shut the freeway down. And she was like, what? I'm like, it's like a Tuesday. I'm like, I need to go get him now. Are you sure? I'm like, look, call him, pick him up now. Called him. I go, if I don't pick him up now, I'm not picking him up.
Yep.
Drove down there and he was so panicked, bro. He trusts me. He put all this stuff like in like his sheets, his bed sheets, like just filled. I'm like, you just packed the car up with everything and drove back. And he's like, Uncle, do you think something? I'm like, listen, son. Yes.
Yep.
Nobody sees this. So in the meantime, comes to my house. He sees everything. I break everything. I was really honest and broke a lot of other things down with him.
Yeah.
Are you good? He's like, I'm good. All right, let's go to the store. Let's go pick up some last minute things. We'll be all set. So we go to Target, bro. So surreal. In the background, I think they're playing like LL Cool J music, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there pushing my cart, and people are just running up and down the aisles, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Just the shelves were just empty.
Oh, yeah.
Empty. People were like, I can't believe they're out of water. Like they were legit freaking out.
Yep.
And I was like, I went to some other section. I'm not going to say where I went, but to go pick up a few things.
Yeah.
Tons of it. I'm like, look at that.
Yeah.
And my nephew was like, this is weird. This is so crazy. I'm like, this is nothing.
Because you and I already had all of it.
Yeah. I'm like,
We're
this
ready.
is just the beginning, bro.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes me more worried.
Yeah.
Is not having a preparation plan.
For sure.
And so if it never happens, great. It's peace of mind.
For sure. For sure.
No problem with that.
Or you can donate those canned foods 2 years later to
Yeah.
a great cause and then
Which I need to do, by the way.
Like I just did it. I just did it like 3 weeks ago. I'm like, okay, cool. Those were there to serve me. Now I'm going to use them to serve someone else, and I'm going to restock.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
And then on the opposite end, I think what people see is the level of paranoia,
For sure.
which is completely different.
For sure.
Look, I put my seatbelt on for a reason.
For sure.
Right? Case in point, you're an injury attorney.
Yes.
I guarantee you see so many injuries now that you're like walking somewhere and you're like, oh, that's not cool.
Oh, left and right.
Right?
Yeah.
But you know what to look for.
For sure. For sure.
And that's really what it is.
Yeah.
When you read and you understand societal changes and you detach from it.
Yep.
And you look at it from a 10,000 foot view, everyone else is going to be like, oh, no, this is the way the world works. The world is flat.
Yep.
And you're going to be over here being like, well,
yep.
I can talk to you about it. You may get persecuted about it.
Yep.
But that's okay.
Yep.
You can stay right there because you're choosing to be ignorant. You're
For sure.
choosing to stay in that space.
For sure. Bro, we got to get this podcast rolling. I'm down.
Down?
100%.
We didn't even go over like details.
Like this is like surface. Like that's what I want to figure out is like how we can do it. Like, do we do like a topic each episode and like dive in deep on that topic? Should we do a news like where we're breaking down current news so people can kind of look through like,
oh man, you made me hot right now, dude.
you know what I mean? Like that's what I mean. Like there's so many different ways we can do it, but it's so needed. And I love your idea of having like a fact checker in here where they can just real time fact check this stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's so smart to do that because then that kind of dispels the, oh, well, this is crazy. No, it's not. Like we'll fact check it real time. But I think that this is such a necessary deal, and I think people would get value out of it. And like I said, like even if no one got value out of it, it's something that you and I can look back on 10 years from now and be like, called that, like
Dude,
check that box.
I was trying to get
another
Hernan,
one.
so I told my buddy Hernan he has a really
I know Hernan well.
yeah he has a solid podcast. But I did one with him during that time frame.
Yep.
And I was talking to him about it. I was like breaking things down. This is in 2020. All right, bro. So you're my homie. Here's what I'm gonna tell you. This is what's gonna happen. This is what's gonna happen next. This is what's gonna happen next. Here's what's gonna happen. He's like, how do you know? I'm like, I can't tell you how I know.
Yeah.
But here's what's gonna happen. And then we recorded it. I go, matter of fact, I'll record it. So we recorded it. 2 years later, it was out of like I think like 1,200 podcasts he's done.
Yep.
The one that gets blocked was that specific one.
Check.
Dude, and then I went back and I said, dude, I want to go back and listen to it. And I want to see how accurate that was. It was 100% accurate, all of it, the whole way through. And he's like, dude, you made me a believer.
Yep.
I said, do you know it's nothing special for me? There was no like premonition.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, hey, I'm just thinking this is what's going to happen. here's the mechanisms that are in place. If you look at the Rockefeller report on on Lockstep and what they're going to do when a pandemic happens, this is their protocol. And if you don't believe me, here's the link to the John Hopkins website with them telling you exactly step by step by step. Because why? Well, because world leaders need to know what they need to do. And so for me, I was talking to my buddy about like investing and stuff. I said, well, who better than to read a book from a billionaire who's going to tell you this is how I invest
For sure.
and why I invest. And I'm doing this before I retire. Okay, cool. Let me listen to it. I had to go through that thing. I think I went through it 2.5 times till halfway through. I was just like, I believe. I'm good. I 100% get it now. But yeah, so afterwards, when we did that whole podcast breakdown, now we start seeing what's coming, and we don't necessarily see it because back to that cage subjugation of the pigs in the European nations, they're already getting that centralized digital currency
For sure.
and we've already seen what countries like Canada are going through, and they were able to hack into their bank accounts and shut them down
For sure.
because they didn't agree with the agenda that was being presented to them.
For sure.
They were taking a stand. And so they were slapped down. I'm like, wow, that's Marxism. That's this. That is what that is. Goes back to reading Animal Farm. Right? And that's what he wrote that specifically so we can take that as an analogy of these, how these things are behaving, so we can see it in society. Right? That's all it was from.
It's breadcrumbs.
It's breadcrumbs.
Breadcrumbs.
Oh my God, you have me so scared right now, bro.
Fucking breadcrumbs.
I don't want to share like 90% of this.
No, but I'm telling you.
No, we just like, this is like scratching the surface.
It is, but we need to. I'm gonna like keep pushing you on it, because like I'll come here, we'll figure out a place to do it, but like this is needed. It's necessary. It's a service to people. People will at least be able, and even if with like each episode we do a book and we go through the book and kind of give a little bit of a summary, at least then it breaks it down for people, so people start to be able to see.
Like wag the dog.
100%, like 100%. But like, yeah, like I mean, I was like looking through books last night before this podcast. I'm like, there's so many good books. Hope and Tragedy, Carol Quigley. Like, there's so many good books that are so eye opening that people just have no idea about. So
you
let me know.
But I'm down. I am down. But if we do it, and anybody wants to follow along from this podcast to that one, take it with a grain of salt. And all I always tell people is trust but verify. Trust but verify.
For sure.
And keep it to your circle of people. Like, find your tribe. Like, legit find your tribe, because it will keep you sane. You'll start seeing things in specific ways. And the reason I'm throwing this caveat out there is because there is a thing called the Smith effect, Mr. Smith. So if you guys don't know what Mr. Smith effect is basically when Keanu Reeves, when he's in the Matrix and he's Neo, he's already taking the red pill. He's woken up on the Nebuchadnezzar. Right? So he already sees the other world, comes back, right? And wants to tell one of his coworkers. And immediately his coworker just turns into Mr. Smith, and that's when they grab him. Right? Sometimes if you're having these kind of conversations with people, you have to recognize that you may trigger a Mr. Smith moment in them.
For sure.
Because you're literally cracking their perception of what reality is.
For sure.
There's some people that watch, I don't know, CNN, and they think of what that Rachel Maddow, as an example, what she's saying is gospel. And that is their world. Since then, we know the Russian narrative was garbage.
For sure.
Right? Or we have this protection within our government that's protecting specific people, right? And we see it happening, this double standard. And people just sit back and be like, no, what do you mean? But what about? But what about? What about? I'm like, well, what about that? If we truly took our dog out of the fight and we wanted to play on a complete level playing field, do you see the hypocrisy in this?
Yes.
But because that cult mentality of not being able to let go of that identity is so ingrained, it's no surprise to me how deep the MK Ultra programming can be.
For sure. And it's not your job to wake up everyone. And I've realized that. And I have a group text feed with guys that I grew up with, like from like 6th grade moving on. They're some of my best friends in the world. And we'll talk about this. And there's a couple of them that like I think have put distance between myself and them over these kind of things.
Oh yeah.
And some of them are like totally get it and see it, but some of them have like I can tell that there's now and I don't like that. Like that's not something that I'm asking for, but I also understand it. And for me, it's frustrating because I'm like, you've known me my whole life. You know how researched I am. You know how much I read. You know how much I dig. You know how educated I am. You know that I'm a successful human. I'm not some crazy guy on the street asking for change, telling you these crazy stories. Like if I'm telling you this passionately from my heart, maybe you should do some digging on your own. But there's that cognitive dissonance where they're not going to be able to, and that's fine. And now I realized I can't push.
Well, see, that's why I love the analogy of the Matrix, because Morpheus gives him the option. Take the red pill and you're going to see the world for what it really is, or take the blue pill and everything stays status quo. Sometimes I feel like I want to take the blue pill back again. Be like, dude,
I get it.
I'm cool because I don't have to stress off this crap.
I get it. At
the same time, the red pill comes along with it, the black pill. And people don't necessarily know that, right? Because as Neo keeps going through his journey and he sees what the Matrix is, that there was an architect that was involved in the creation of the Matrix. And he was like, whoa, wait a minute. Because people never understand like why the last movie was even created. And they don't realize that he woke up and then he was now in a coffee shop being a regular dude, and he saw the girl, I forget her name, and he was like, I know you in another life. Well, yeah, because they did him a favor. They put him back in the system and they rebooted it.
Bro, I'm glad we finally got this conversation out there. I'm glad we finally had it. Shout out to Business Bros, Hernan. Bro, this is a long time needed.
It was a long time. I've talked about this for a couple of years now.
I know. And I'm gonna keep pushing you. I think we need to get something on the regular, even if it's just once a month.
Okay, we're gonna do it for sure.
Okay,
we're gonna do it for sure. And you know what? And I almost want to do this too, because I was thinking about this the other day. Is that you know how you have like reaction videos? So I was like, dude, this would be, because there's sometimes there's just clown world. I just want to just like laugh my ass off.
For sure.
But then there's other times where like all the vids I send you like all the time. So I'm putting my puzzle pieces together. And like, here's my thought. That.
I agree.
So you take a little bit of that. Because if people understood some of the basis of these things, like, I'll give you one. The Balfour letters. Like, just do that. Go on Wikipedia and look up Balfour letter. And it was a letter from Lord Rothschild that was sent to the King of England in 1917, right? Where this whole creation of Israel was already in place in how it was going to happen. And why their vested interest in it. Even before it even started.
For sure.
That's actual fact. You can read that and what Zionism is and where it comes from and why it came and why is he, what's their belief system and all that other dark stuff. But
people just aren't ready for a lot of it. But I think if you break it down slowly, I think it's very digestible. And that's what I think we can do.
Okay. So I'm completely down. Completely down.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, man.
Appreciate you.
Raise your thinking.
100%.
Read a book. Get out your comfort zone.
I think of like that 90s commercial, the more you know what I mean? Like that's what I'm like, see, like, come on, pick up a book.
I think of it from my business standpoint initially as I'm the monkey climbing the ladder. I don't care. I'm going to get my bananas. I see what you're saying and I know this is the way it's going to be, but be brave enough to climb the ladder. Right? You'll be surprised what's on the other end.
For sure. I love it. Thank you again.
We're out.